Welcome to the Disney Master Teachers Panel. I'm Sue Carlin, and I cover ComicCon for Fast Company magazine. And we did this panel at WonderCon, and we had such a great response, except for the heckler we had, that we are reprising it here. So hopefully the heckler has not rejoined this room. If you're tweeting about this panel, please use the hashtag DisneyMasters, unless of course you hate it, in which case don't say anything. So here we go. I want to give you a little bit of history about this panel because these guys are continuing an 80-year-old legacy. Since 1932, Disney's been the only entertainment studio to continue an unbroken tradition of offering in-studio life drawing classes for its artists. The idea is that understanding and capturing the anatomy and sense of motion from a live model improves animated drawings and gestures. It began when an animator named Art Babbitt began hosting life drawing sessions at his home. When Walt Disney found out, he didn't want to risk a scandal about the public learning that his artists were drawing naked women at his home. So he brought the sessions in studio, and eventually a legendary art teacher named Don Graham, from what is now the California Art Institute came in to teach. And from there spawned the legendary Nine Old Men and the rest of the animation team. Eventually, other animation and visual effects studios followed suit. But Disney's classes not only continued unabated, but expanded beyond features to its TV animation, theme park, consumer products, and straight-to-DVD divisions. Now, continuing that tradition today are master teachers, Karl Gnass. Put up your hand. Mark McDonald. And Bob Cotto. And that gentleman on the end is Dan Cooper, and he's a Disney artist, and he's going to be talking about how these life drawing sessions have helped him in his animation. Their classes use nude and costume models to help animators better understand the fundamentals of the human form, how clothing and gesture inform character and intent, and how to infuse spirit into their figures. They also offer public classes in Los Angeles, Karl and Mark at the Animation Guild, Bob through the Drawing Club. And we'll give you their URLs for their websites at the end of the panel and where you can find them on the floor afterwards. And now onward to the questions. So I'm going to ask a bunch of questions, and then I want you guys to just feel free to jump in, at any pace. Okay, first question. If the animation is exaggerated, right, an extreme version of reality, why does someone need to study an actual live model to do it? Okay, this is where you answer.
I think...
Okay, that's a good start. I just need the rest of the sentence. They're really shy, but then they'll get rolling.
Are we ready?
Yes.
We work in the dark, by the way.
Yeah.
In so many different ways.
There's a kind of bedrock experience that comes from developing your drawing skills that can be substituted with style, with style or technique, and it's very important. And everyone that works in the industry that's really good understands that, and they continue to work their skills. What it does also allow is for anyone working on a project that works towards a certain mood or tone of a project to come back to that bedrock understanding when it's time to move in a new direction, new styles, and so on. So it's constantly something that is nurtured and kept alive and worked with. And I find that what I hear from most of the professionals that understand this is that that's a kind of a joy, because you're coming off of a production which is to serve a larger purpose, back to the love of drawing in the first place. And that's very nurturing. It sets you up for the next engagement. and anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the way I see it, it's kind of like if you're a writer, understanding language first, then creative writing kind of comes in after that, you know? And I think when you're doing drawing in these drawing classes, and you work on some things like Karl does in live drawing classes, it's so much fun when you understand the structure and everything, and then pushing it kind of comes with that knowledge, right?
Definitely.
So, versus I'll see some people and they start pushing it right away, but they don't really understand what they're doing. They're mostly just copying other people's stuff. And, you know, when you keep revisiting and revisiting, the depth of knowledge really starts to come through in the drawings.
I think sometimes too we get so caught up in style, which is what Karl was saying, that you end up mimicking something instead of, you know, I'm such a dork, right? I'll go out and I'll look for sketchbook.
That's really true.
Yeah. So I'll go out and look for sketchbooks and things of that, other artists that I really enjoy. But what I'm trying to do is actually I'm just looking at their thinking process, the thought process that goes behind these drawings that at the end look slick and clean, to understand the idea behind it. So I think when you understand the fundamental basics, you can push or change anything to a proportion or style by adding things on top of that or stripping it away in just adding certain pieces edited. So, you know, without the foundations, you're kind of treading water, or you can be really good at this one thing. But in the studio system, you really have to you have to adapt a lot. You know, this is not about us. You know, as in the studio, you know, you actually have to create something that is for the greater good.
The skills to adapt to any style
Yeah.
right away.
Yeah, and just the most seasoned artists will have a hard time in the beginning of a project because you're trying to mentally get on pace with where this thing could go or is going. And without those fundamentals, you're in deep trouble.
If you go back to the idea that that we're all talking about, but specifically what Bob was just saying about the idea of language, there are basic building blocks that everything has to come from. And the thing is, we all tend to fall in love with whatever's hot now, or what was ever hot 10 years ago, or whatever, and we love those affectations. And so we start basically using someone else's mannerisms that they basically deduce after doing their research. So basically, you start doing the game of telephone, where you're taking someone else's truth and you're trying to make it yours. At some level, like when you see a bad actor, with no offense, basically you're not going to have the substance that you're really looking for. You've got to have that base fundamental of drawing, so that when you caricature or design something, that you're coming from a strong place, not basically building a house on sand.
And it is the illusion of life at the same time. You're really trying to...
That's a book.
Yeah, it's true. And it comes from the studio. But it is really something that you're trying to make people make believe, just like you are, that this thing is real. And all those things when it comes to, you know, well, anatomy is meat. It's pieces of meat. But you have to learn that, the structure, the understanding, you know, and inject that life with those pieces. It's really about the mimicking life or a reality. And the study never ends, ever.
Can you talk a little bit about how you teach professionals at Disney, and then how you tailor those lessons for aspiring animators in your other classes?
First of all, I mean, some people that come to the workshop, like Ron Husband, would come to the workshop. He's a big-time animator. I'm not going to teach him how to draw. He knows how to draw. He's been drawing forever. So what I do in my workshop is maybe I'll look at what kinds of things he might be trying to work on, and I'll tell the model, maybe we can try to do poses kind of like this, things like that. I kind of see myself sometimes, at least in my workshops, kind of like the athletic trainer for a pro team. It's like, you know, these guys can play, but they're here to get stronger. You know, what do you need to get stronger at? But then there will always be these artists coming in that are trying to be upwardly mobile. Like they want to get better so they can maybe move up. And I'll talk to those guys and see what they're trying to do, because they're all trying to do something a little different. And maybe they are better at certain things and not good at other things, and that's why they're there. lot of times I'll tell them to go to Karl's workshop because they have to go back to the structure of the anatomy. My workshops, it's always the costume character models, so life drawing is the root. It's the root. It's always going to be the most important thing.
So the way I handle that is, well, I have public classes, and I get a lot of animators that come to the public classes. I'm also teaching classes at Disney, DreamWorks, and other studios. But the interesting thing is when professionals come into this environment, you would expect that they would know everything. And the truth is that if they've already agreed to come to this place, they've already agreed to reopen the question about what they know and they don't. And they become perfectly willing to share thoughts and ideas with those that know less than they do. At the off chance that they'll learn something from those that are just beginning as well. What I see is that they find from the younger people, the people that have been engaged less time, that they find that they've picked up on things that they themselves may have missed along the road. And so that the learning process is very interesting. They're learning from the younger people, and the younger people are learning where they can go when they see examples of professional work. And so there's this kind of sharing that happens in that kind of environment. Now that happens in the public arena. What happens in the studios, well, there's still a pretty big range. You've got the professional animators, and then you've got technicians. And there's a lot of technicians that create a lot of what we see. And they realize that in order to continue with this process, that they also need to have certain kinds of understanding that can only occur with drawing education. And what they see is that they lack the imagination that the animators have, and they want them. They also, I would suggest that they fear that they're not in that loop, that even though that they understand the technical approach to the form, they don't understand the creative approach, and they want that. So they end up in the classes too. Now you've got a different kind of sharing between that group and the animators. So there's new exchanges taking place. I think this is the thing that's most interesting about that question anyway.
And I think it's like any teacher. Again, it's not about the teacher. It's about each person as individual, and you might hear something. So you might say something to one person and have to say it differently, even though it's the exact same material you're trying to communicate, because they might be able to relate to it by zeros and ones in a different way. A lot of modelers and coders and stuff that are welcome to come in too. So again, I teach at Disney. I teach costume drawing. I still do figure drawing with Karl every single Friday. And he's the kind of guy. He's the kind of guy where he'll say, he's very precise, and he'll say something very subtly that he said to me 10 years ago, but it sinks in differently because it was the right time for me to hear it, or he said it in a certain way that was relatable to me, right? So that's kind of, when it comes to instructing or teaching, it's really interesting trying to not reprogram, but get into their head. It's not about my drawing or his drawing or his drawing or his drawing. It's about trying to communicate to them so that they can go, oh yeah, that's right. Well, did you look at Klimt? He does this style, and I know you like flat line art, and you can figure this out, but then turn it into dimensional. So it's relatable to different people in different ways, and that's kind of the fun part about teaching at the studios, is that there is a mastery or a pretty good understanding of a specific thing that they do. Well, guess how big the wide variety of jobs are there? It's a lot of people working to a common goal. So to learn all these things is that lifelong process, and as we're no different. We're always striving to improve or increase either our communication visually or verbally. So that's the fun part.
So the bad news is that your training never ends.
Yeah.
And the good news is that your training never ends.
Yeah. The blessing and the curse.
No,
Dan, can
it's-
you talk a little bit about how these classes have informed your animation skills?
Boring.
You know what? I'm not an animator, so it's sort of a it's a funny question, but it's what it gets back to is what the guys just finished talking about, and that's that learning never stops. A lot of what we have to do, whether we're designing sets or I don't design characters, but when we're doing sets, they have to evoke the same qualities that the characters are about. So for instance, you're going to be doing a chair or you're going to be doing a table, but that table has to have attitude. And that attitude has to have something that honestly you'd be getting from a figure drawing. And so it's a very, very strange thing. You start looking at some of the sofas and I think it's Cinderella. That's a great example of something where literally the furniture is a character. It's got attitude to it. You know, it's either got a defiant attitude or something that's very, very lackadaisical or something like that. You've actually got all that in there. So what it gets down to is drawing is design. And so as a designer, you're basically learning a vocabulary of shapes. And what better place to learn and study all that than from life? And just when you think that you've got it all, no matter how many years you've been doing it, which is the case for a lot of us that have been doing it for very many years, there's always going to be somebody that's going to be able to point out some crucial flaw or some piece of the puzzle that you completely missed. And then when we first get out of school, we do think that we know it all. And that's when it's actually really, really important to make certain that your learning continues, because it is a lifelong process. And that's what's exciting about it. If you've got all the answers now, it gets boring.
You kind of have to be up for the challenge, huh?
Yeah.
It's really the more you know, the more you don't know.
And that keeps it always exciting.
And I think that's what I meant when I said that's the good news.
Yeah.
The bad news becomes the good news.
Right.
Exactly right. Yeah.
It's like when you hear athletes say they like to practice, they like to go to practice, they enjoy that practice. It's a little bit like that. Yeah.
It's like, and also I think whatever you're working on, you know, you have to work on a subject or a particular thing when you're doing it. Maybe it's about life, maybe it's about anatomy, maybe it's about symbols and shapes or style or, I don't know, something, feet, hands or something. You know, you get to attack a specific thing, and it actually becomes, I don't want to get too Eastern philosophy here, but it becomes a sort of meditation that you do get a break. You are working on something that's really relaxing. You know, it's better than coffee. Which is rare. Yes. Well, you have to have coffee first.
Can you get, I want to move into a slightly esoteric level now. And can you talk a little bit about the difference between understanding the mechanics of a pose and infusing intent, or as you put it, Karl, the spirit of the pose?
Well, I will use infusing intent. Spirit of the pose, there might be a lot of interpretations for that, but what spirit of the pose means is to find the life force that's involved in the enterprise of drawing, whether it's a couch, a chair, or a room. The room, if you're designing a layout, we call it a layout, which is an environment, whether it's external or internal, it should look like it's alive, and it should belong to the world of the characters that play there, and so in some way reflect the attitudes and the nature of the characters that are involved in that. So it's got a certain kind of mood. You're not going to expect, say, the same mood, say, from a layout from Batman as you would from Tangled. Well, Tangled's still too close, but I was thinking of Mr. SquarePants. Oh. You're going to have, they're different worlds. And when you're designing for one, you have to find the life force in that. And the characters are not separate. Even in the life drawing situation, I don't really suggest that people draw poses. What I'm really asking them to draw is draw the story. What is the story? First, that's the first thing. What you find when you make a few strokes, and when you put those down, and that is for those that don't start with eyelashes first.
Or the rib cage,
Whatever. So you have a few lines, and that should express the intent of the character in that action, right from the get-go. Now, when you're aware of that, you don't want to forget that when you're adding all the doodads. You know, like muscles and eyes and pocketbooks and whatever. You don't want to forget what the original intent is, because when you do, you lose sight of your story. And I think everyone will agree that there are a lot of films out there that lose sight of the intent of the story because they get lost in effects and detail. As much as we love them, they become isolated from the story. So,
a more simple example of this is going to be when you look at your friend. Do you see them, or do you see, I am, two eyes? How many hairs on those eyebrows? It's how many? Well, look at the lips. What's going on? You're looking at your friend. You're looking at that complete
individual.
the spirit. You see them. You don't see a collection of parts. And what's funny is that in the life drawing class, you will see, especially when we're talking about anatomy, you'll be seeing that, okay, this part here, this part here, this part here. You won't see this beautiful flow that goes on. And when you see these, I was going to use a poorly chosen word to describe my associates here, but I will keep my language clean.
Shit.
consider it.
Okay, we have crossed the line. Anyway, what happens though is instead of seeing just a collection of anatomical parts, you'll see a beautiful flow that describes agitation. It describes happiness. It describes what is the complete intent, spirit, whatever word you want to use for it. What's the acting? When you're watching your favorite TV show or movie, are you aware that an actor's acting? That's called bad acting. If you're watching the character and you're engrossed in the story and you've forgotten about all that, that's what the experience is supposed to be.
So all the details have to become invisible and at the service of the story.
Mark is doing a great example of this right now.
Right.
Yeah, like when I'm doing workshops, whether it's at Disney or my drawing club workshop, every week I'm fascinated. I'll see a model up there in costume trying to take a pose, trying to communicate something. Then I have a whole room full of people all doing something a little bit different. And they're all searching for their own truth. They're all looking for their own right answer. Okay? Sometimes the answer is, structure isn't quite right. They're working on that. But for others, it's like a song. It's like a story. And the stories are different. And people they could be doing amazing things with the character, making something more heroic, maybe something funny. Okay? Really silly, ridiculous. But right next to them, something amazingly serious. And I find that really fascinating. It's fun to watch every week. So there's no one right answer, but that's the intent. That's the spirit.
And if you can't tell me what that person who's now not, the thing in front of you means nothing. What matters is the end result on your paper or screen or whatever. So if you can tell me what that person or character is thinking, regardless of if they're naked or they have clothes on, the point is these are individuals, so you have to individually work on whatever you want to work on. But where I come from, I'm a mostly costume guy. I'm a character designer. So my drawings, I put them in a little set, and they're actually doing something. This is a specific task, what they're thinking, what they're doing, instead of, I don't know, it's 3 minutes. Get this over with so I can do the next drawing. You're like, no. What's behind it? The practice is in here. It just comes out here. That's the key for me.
I'll give you a tip. If you're drawing characters and you like to draw characters with costumes, don't draw 50 characters that are in different costumes. Right. Draw 1 or 2 characters, explore who they are, have them interact with one another, find the world, find out who they are, bring them to life. That 2 or 3 characters like that will go a lot further than 50 good-looking characters that are absolutely doing nothing.
And again, it's specific because you say, well, while you're designing or coming up with a character, whether it's a TV show, a film, or anything, you know, this is a specific person. How they pick something up or walk is specific to them. So what you're doing is you're really exploring how this person would act, not just do a good drawing of someone picking up a crappy name on a card, right? It's not a good thing.
In other words, there's no such thing as a walk cycle that fits everybody.
Right.
Everybody's walking differently, everybody's unique. The way they hold their bodies, just in repose. Even if they're sitting, even if their eyes are closed, there's something unique about each person. There's something that's the same. We're all mechanically put together the same way. How we use it is very different. How we bring it to life. That kinetic spirit. So even if your drawing doesn't look precisely like the subject, they'll feel like the subject. They'll be the subject in all other ways.
Can I just show 2 quick images here real quick? So life drawing, it could not be more essential. If you don't understand what's driving the forces on top, meaning clothing, you're in trouble, right? It's kind of like building blocks. It never ends. So that guy's like, so
Good looking guy.
He was. That bearded guy's cool. Okay, so here we go. I mean, you're creating little robots, right? This is from some new book. So, okay. So listen to this. I hate robots. I'm not good at hard tech. That's just, I'm more of an organic person. So in order to instill a sense of personality without the use of eyes or a mouth or expressions, body language and personality can be exhibited by the way they stand, by a walk cycle, which is exactly what we were just talking about. Can we go to the next one? So again, you've got duh on the left, right? You've got the tough guy, the third guy to the right. So each one of these are actually personalities. They're designed and they're kind of, oh, what's cool little pieces and parts of robots. But I'm actually going for, you know, I saw the movie The Black Hole when I was a kid, and that guy scared the hell out of me, the robot, Maximilian. So how could you show something that has no facial features just by proportion or the way the person stands, walks, picks something up? So it directly translates into craft when you're working in the service of a film, a TV show, concepts, right? It's not just about making a cool robot that shines, you know, and how many I don't want to get in trouble here. How many concept pieces have you seen? There are these beautiful environments and there's like a soulless guy standing there with a staff that tells me nothing, right? Yeah, no, he's on it. He's my boy. He's my boy. So I think everything is, what we do is...
They make movies with guys like that.
Yeah, true. Our job is to fool everyone. It's to fool the audience, whoever's looking at whatever you do, to make them have an emotional reaction or communicate something without, I didn't have enough time to do the hand, but the model is like this, and well, no. It's like it has to communicate without a verbal dialogue or a written description. It just has to communicate, period. If you don't, I don't want to sound harsh, but if you don't do that, you fail, right? Which isn't to say that you win every single time. You're exploring something, but your job is to communicate.
How many, just to raise your hand, how many people in here are interested in telling stories with their pictures? Oh, a couple. How many people are interested in comic books, maybe making a comic book? How many people are interested in doing storyboarding? How many people are interested in doing layouts? Are you sure? How many people are interested in doing layouts? All right, you want to keep in mind that a layout has to have a soul, a personality, and it needs to belong to the characters. Generally, when you see layouts in an environment, it represents the view of the main character. In other words, you're seeing the world through the eyes of the main character. Now, test that. Go watch a movie and see if that isn't true. Okay? If you're interested in developing stories, that means you're going to be doing a series of pictures. That means you need to understand something about sequence and the rest of it. And you need to have a command of your drawing skills, like, for instance, perspective. How many people have trouble drawing hands and feet? Only 2? Okay. How many people have trouble with perspective? Okay, I will tell you right now, you cannot do sequences of pictures without understanding perspective so well that it becomes fluid for you, that you can bend and shape the rules. Can you pull up that perspective, please? Let's pull up the perspective piece just for a minute. For instance, when I was boarding for Disney some years ago, I was asked, I was doing a Darkwing Duck episode, and my director... Yeah!
Let's get dangerous.
And the director asked me to produce a layout, instead of having the layout artist to do it, where he says, I wanted to start of us looking up at the buildings, and as we move across to look down in the buildings. I'm going to leave that to you because the layout artist is not telling the story. You know what has to happen, so do it. And what that means is that there are no, the rules of perspective as we understand them, they need to be bent in order to see a thing like that. Now when you look at that piece that's up there, understand that you're only seeing a 12, what they call a 12 field frame. It moves across that pan shot. You're not seeing the whole thing at once. If you take and you look across it like that, it all looks logical to the eye. But when you see it spread out like that, well, that's the way you have to conceive it in order to make it work. Let's show the next thing. Here's another one, similar kind of idea. When you look at it on paper, it looks kind of absurd. But the fact is that when you kind of run your eye across it, a square at a time, it looks very smooth. It's sort of like when I'm looking over here and I shift over here. The perspective as I'm looking actually changes. If you were to draw that, it wouldn't look like ordinary perspective. Now, in order to get to that point, you have to have skills. And and that goes for layout. That goes. I mean, you can't really do a good layout unless, because perspective is your camera. If you don't have it, you do not have a camera. And you can't always rely on the tools, the CD tools, to save you. You need to be able to, you have to conceptualize these things, which means I won't use the word lubricate this time.
Whoa.
That, no
Here we go.
Well, that was you.
No!
You know, that's what got the heckler at WonderCon all excited when that's how
Yeah,
it
I
started.
know. It kind of lubricated his. But what I'm saying is that when you have to conceive in ways that are not obvious, and you have to work for it, it does open up neurological pathways. This is one of the things that the technicians feel like they really wanted to have a better handle on, and that's why they attend the classes, because they realize that working in this kind of an environment and in that way allows them to interact on that level, to get that kind of energy going.
This is a high cerebral activity. It's not, I'm gonna get in trouble. This isn't about enjoying medicinal things and drawing. It's not. It's very, you could, but it's not good. No, but it really is a cerebral process that you have to communicate a lot of things and access intelligent parts to solve a problem. These are all problem solving. And when he shows you these images, how to not only shift perspective, but mask it when there's something in front to transition to the next down shot or up shot using that building, it tells you there's a high level of intelligence as well as, you know, movie magic. There's a little hidden things in there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like when I work with students, like I teach at Art Center in Pasadena, people just kind of want to draw what they want to draw, the stuff that they find really fun. So they'll draw the characters, they'll draw this kind of stuff, but they'll kind of run away from perspective because it's harder. And I'll kind of say what Karl just said and say, no, it's all drawing, it's all together. And you can't avoid it because it's hard, because in the end all, if you're creating a world and these characters have to exist in that world, it has to be all kind of thought up consistent. And if you have to wait for somebody to model it in 3D for you to really see it, you're really not seeing it. You have to be able to conceptualize this stuff in your head and articulate it out. Then if it works, it might get built, okay? And so, yeah. You know,
And so, like, riffing off what you're just talking about now, the pitfalls of solely relying on computers nowadays to solve those problems or to work out pose mechanics. What are the dangers of just doing that?
Well, actually, I'm gonna sort of take apart your question, because the whole idea, a computer is a tool basically that is used in the same way that a pencil is used. So how do you let a pencil just handle and do all your art for you? It's how you use it. Shut up. I'm stopping that one before.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
Anyway, so the point is basically everything that we're talking about as far as design goes, anything before it goes into the computer has to be designed.
Yeah.
And that's designed by hand. Or what you have basically is people are sculpting, but they're sculpting in the computer. But they still have to have knowledge of shape, rhythm, design, all the language things that we're talking about. It's a medium. It's all the same thing. It's acting, it's intent, it's the spirit of the pose. That's a plug for you to go on. Shameless.com. Anyway, so that's for me truthfully the answer to the question.
I mean, it's like a speed tool.
Yeah,
basically.
it's a tool.
It's a speed tool. Sure. I mean, and one big thing that I'll see is people try to get into digital painting really quick, but they've never really mixed color. Right. And they're selecting color in the computer, and it doesn't make any sense.
Or they use a certain the chalk brush.
You have to mix the color for real first to really understand how color works. Then you can apply that knowledge into the computer. But if you do it the other way around, you get these bizarre color combinations that they don't really work. And the sad part is you don't understand why they don't work.
There's a chemistry to understanding colors and to making it work. And you're probably speak to that really well.
Yeah, well, basically the main things that you're looking at is you're looking at what's the actual local color. In other words, for instance, the woman over here has a red shirt. You've got a yellow bag. Basically, there's a true local or basically white light color that every object has. It can be dark hair, it can be light hair, it could be a white shirt, it could be a brown pair of pants, whatever the case. You've got to know what that is. Then you have to know what the color of the light is, what the brightness of the light is. Is there diffusion going on? Sharp focus, soft focus. All of those things basically get into how we deal with color, and then completely different subject and yet still kind of the same. Basically, through the color, we're going to decide, okay, is it happy? Is it sad? Is it agitated? That's got to carry the emotion. That's got to support all of these things that these guys are talking about as well. But that starts to...
And again, color and lighting are together but separate. And Dan truly is a master at lighting, at using color.
I'll pay you for that.
No, it's true. So I think it really is no different. Color is its own animal, but it can be used so well when combining things together. So it's like we do teach life drawing and gesture drawing and structure and anatomy and human form and animal form. I mean, how many human species are there? I'll help you. How many animal species are there? I can't count that high. I'm an artist. So that's another thing that's really important to also study too, because how many films there's a lot of anthropomorphic things where animals are bipedal, they're human. But anyway, hold on. So I think you have to study all these things: human, animal, lighting, tone, value. But color is just as sophisticated and a building block that you need to use after you learn specific things.
So would you say that what you're talking about is basically they're just taking blue and red. There's no real experiment with color.
Exactly.
It's like if you're cooking, you just add salt.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's no real taste for it. You really kind of need to. You're not experiencing the range that we could have in what you're seeing people
Absolutely.
use within that system.
Oh yeah, if you really observe lighting and color, just like you observe the human form in Karl's class, you'll notice the sky isn't the same blue every day. You know, depending on
Or what time of day.
or what time of day, it changes. And if you're observant enough, you figure this stuff out. That's like the subtlety of a pose, like what these guys are talking about when you're drawing people in a workshop, and you're not just seeing the mechanics of the pose, but you're feeling the spirit of the pose. I mean, it's very, very similar. And as it relates to the computer is a speed tool, but sometimes that speed can just kind of zoom over this stuff and just kind of generalize everything.
And you know, there's a lot to learn about color. I mean, both of these guys are really talking about it, the value of it. But in the end, color is very personal, and therefore, color in itself says a lot about character. And you notice we said that about things that one would ordinarily not think of that way, like perspective, having an organic, personable quality about it. So when you look at something, it kind of bends and it invites you in, or it rejects you, or any number of things, because of the understanding one can tell stories with it. So every one of these things is a tool to help you tell the story that you want to tell.
So I worked a lot on Tinkerbell and Tinkerbell 2. I know those are your favorite movies. So hold your applause. Okay. So one of the most amazing things, even though it was a riff off of obviously Peter Pan and all those things, the environments, the soft nature of the rounded forms, the non-right angle forms that are man-made things were such a beautiful thing to draw. It felt good to draw, right? So that evokes a certain sense of relaxation or invitation, softness, right? Come on in, touch this tree. You won't get a splinter. It's really smooth and soft. Whereas in Frozen, there's a couple sequences, obviously, where there's shards, very triangular shapes that are dangerous shapes for a reason. And that is just as emotional on the opposite end of a warning or danger. And if you were to color code those differently, if you were to make it red versus blue, color also has another layer on top of those things that forces you to have that emotional reaction, not only with the shape design, but also color.
Karl, did you want to talk about the slides that were up on?
Oh, are you running those?
Yeah,
Oh.
they're up.
There's art.
All right. Did I just cut some
All
of you
right.
off?
This one that's up. No, you're fine. You're fine. The one that we're looking at is by Rodney Fuentebello, and he did a sequence of things that are kind of inspirational, developmental pieces for these superheroes. And yes, the Defenders, the free world, right? Avengers. Yeah, and what these do is they inspire the storytellers, or they play upon a theme that the storyteller wants to see, and so on. So there's lots of room for different approaches to the form that are available in this industry. We talked about storyboard, the development pieces, doing layouts and backgrounds, working with the new tools. But they all require a kind of bedrock understanding. You cannot get around it. And those that do will eventually find themselves, frankly, out on the street, because they'll be very limited with the style or techniques that they come in with. The moment it changes, you have no bedrock understanding to go back to, so that you can switch out into the new style. Okay.
You want it to be second-hand. I mean, you do have to plot and plan, certainly perspective or camera or composition, but you want it to kind of come out and be, I don't know, you want it to feel effortless.
Second nature, I think.
Yeah, second nature. Even if it's a line, you want it to feel like it was effortless and second nature.
We have 10 minutes left. I want to take 5 minutes for one last question. There isn't going to be enough time for questions, but please come up and talk to these guys afterwards. They'll be around. But I want to, and then the last 5 minutes of where you can find all their information. So don't get frustrated. You in the front seat. You will have your questions answered. I promise. What do the animation studios look for in artists? What are they looking for now, or like in the next year or so down the road?
Dan, Coop.
A lot of things. Basically, it's design. They're looking for people that are versatile. I'm not one of the people hiring, so no, I can't put into.
What's your address?
Anyway, yeah. So it is basically it's versatility of design. It is in the sake of a designing set. It is going to be drawing it out from multiple perspectives, being able to set decorate in a way that looks like a character actually lived in something, as opposed to here's a file, and here's a bed, and here's a TV.
Here's a texture map.
But basically, it's going to be, even if it's drawn really, really well, it's going to be, how does it look like if somebody lived there? What's left where? In other words, it gets into, and this is a CG thing as well, it gets into set decorating. That's a lot of what we're looking for. A lot of it is going to be excellent draftsmanship, though, and then being able to caricature that a little bit, which means the spin-off of the shapes, and pushing it beyond something that is just realistic and that's it.
And I will come back to the thought from earlier that in your portfolio, it's better to show them how you think about the development of 2 or 3 characters working together, creating that world, who they are, their juxtaposition to one another, as opposed to drawing 50 really great drawings of superheroes, right? With these flat colors that come out of it, directly out of the tube, so to speak.
And I do really feel like okay, when you go to apply for a job, you have to kind of be specific. You have to be specific. I work a lot in TV too, so I will tailor something to a specific style for a certain show. But that's where the versatility comes in. So you might not know what they're working on, but you do want to give a smattering of something that isn't just a specific. I'm not bashing superheroes. But you need to also understand that there's a whole world outside of that. And if you want to increase your skill set or the opportunity for you to be successful in multiple venues or different ways, diversity could not be more important.
Actually, you know what, to that point, that one of the things I know with a lot of times people will draw just what they like. And so you will have a bunch of odd drawings of men, or odd drawings of women, as opposed to here's a drawing of a really cute little girl. Here's a drawing of a really cute little boy. Here is a woman that is a teenager. Here's a woman that is middle-aged, old, whatever. Basically, there's a lot of different character types that are perhaps not necessarily what you want to draw, right, but what we need to see you draw. And those are all things that when you're basically problem solving, which is what all of this leads to, when you're problem solving, we need to basically be able to see that you've got the skills to problem solve things beyond just what you wanted to draw at that time.
And studios are always looking for how you can solve their problems. I mean, like my students will come out of school and go, these are my favorite pieces I've ever done, but it might not relate to how it solves anybody else's problems. I think the next step is you put together a portfolio of pieces that basically presents to whoever it is you're showing it to, I can solve your problems.
I can help you. I will help you along with all these other people. I can fit in and make your life easier.
And the true personal challenge is, how do you take those things that maybe you didn't want to do and then make them fun?
Yeah, and make them look fun, because if you're not having fun, you can see it in the drawing. Yeah.
So I want to take the last 5 minutes and let you guys know where you can find these guys online. And I promise, they will be outside and you can talk to them afterwards, okay? So you don't have to have a breakdown. It's okay. So I also want to impress upon you guys, I forgot to mention their credits earlier because I was so excited to have you hear what they had to say, that these guys are phenomenal artists in their own right. I mean, Karl did character breakdowns for Harry Potter and Stuart Little. He storyboarded for Disney. Bob did a lot of editorial illustration before he started teaching for, National Lampoon and Smithsonian Institutes. Mark has worked as an artist for Jim Henson and Pixar and Fox, and Dan's worked on Tangled and Wreck-It Ralph, and he's working on the upcoming Zootopia. So these guys practice what they preach too, and which is another reason why I think they're such phenomenal teachers. So let's just go down the line. Bob, say your URL and of the drawing club. We'll just go down.
Yes. I do, besides doing workshops at Disney, I do the drawing club workshop, and it's a workshop that anybody can go to up in LA, and the web address is thedrawingclub.com. And we actually have a book coming out on Drawing Club next week. it's the show. Yeah. But it's a great book. It's got over 60-something artists, like John Musker, Paul Briggs, Brett Bean, who's here at the show. A lot of really great people. Steven Silver, they're all in the book.
And it's called The Drawing Club, Mastering the Art of Drawing Characters from Life. And after this, you're going to be down at the Walter Foster booth to answer questions.
Yes.
And that's booth 1320. Okay, Karl.
Well, I teach my public classes are at the Animation Guild. The actual name of the place is the American Animation Institute, AAI.
What? My website. Oh, yeah.
Your website.
My website is spiritofthepose.com, and that's the best way, or my name. I think you can get in with my name.com as well.
And his latest book is called Spirit and Force.
Spirit and Force in Figure Drawing.
And it's on sale at Stuart Ing Books. And
Here, yeah.
What?
Here.
Here, that's what I'm saying. At booth 1502. Okay. Next Victor.
The public place that I'm teaching is in the valley. It's very accessible for anyone that lives in that area. We do get, and Mark teaches there too. So.
It's very centralized to where all the students.
Really, actually, very good value prices. They keep their prices reasonable. We're not trying to make the big bucks.
Okay. Next victim.
I'm Mark McDonald, not like the hamburgers, spelled a little different. And you can go to creativemarksuniversity.com. And I'll be downstairs if you care at table I-05.
Okay, this is at the exhibit. This is not Artist Alley. This is the exhibitor tables near the small press booth. So it's I-05. And your new book is The Art and Feel of Making It Real.
Just to try.
That's right.
Mark will be selling kisses for $1.
That's right.
It's 100 pennies.
He's a damn good kisser. Right, Dan? Is that true? And Dan, what is your website?
I've got a blog, which you are welcome to leave any abuse or comment on there if you want. In fact, it would be welcome. Dan Cooper's Blog Splotch. I don't even want to try to explain that, but and that's on Blogger.
And you'll actually see a lot of his personal paintings as well as his professional work.
Right.
So you can see the breadth of his knowledge, which is sadly amazing. For me, not for you.
Yeah, a lot of the artwork that's been streaming here is theirs. So I think I got the Stuart Ing booth wrong. It's 5012.
Yes.
So, yes. Okay. I know.
Okay.
You guys make me flustered. So that's everything. Please talk to them and ask them your questions. They're going to be hanging out outside. And thank you so much for coming.
What? There will be some handouts up here. There's some announcements on the drawing club. You can come up and pick them up. The book that's coming out, and I'll have some face up here as well.
Excuse me. It's good talk.